Now being recorded.
Happy New Year's, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the January 22nd, 2015 session of Midday at the Oasis. My name is Lori Tagawa, and I am the PSR Community Outreach Coordinator, and I'll be facilitating today's session. Before we begin, a couple of housekeeping things. Today's presentation is being recorded, and the archive and the presentation materials will be available on the PSR website early next week. You've all been muted, so if you have any questions during today's presentation, please type them into the chat box on the left, and I'll be monitoring the chat box throughout the presentation and bring any questions to Cindy's attention. And with that, I'm very happy to introduce today's speaker, Cindy Oni, the Acting Assistant Director of the NNLM Outreach Evaluation Resource Center, who will be talking today about Evaluation 2.0, trends, new ideas, and cool tools. Cindy?
Thank you, Lori, and thank you all for coming. Happy New Year. I'm really excited to be able to present this webinar to everybody today. I chose the title Evaluation 2.0 because it reflects changes that I've seen in the field since I started working as an evaluator. My first questionnaire I did in 1988 for the University of Arizona. It was an alumni questionnaire. And then I started doing evaluation in 1991 for higher ed assessment. Things have changed a lot. And it's become a much more interactive and social process over the 20-plus years that I've been doing evaluation. So that's what I want to talk to you today about, some of these trends and tools that are available to make evaluation more engaging and more meaningful. Just to give you a little bit of background about the Outreach Evaluation Resource Center, we provide support to the National Network of Libraries of Medicine in doing program evaluation. So we do training. We have some online, some booklets that you can either order in print or you can download to help you plan and do program evaluation. You also are welcome to call us, and we provide one-to-one coaching. So I'm going to put my email address up there for everybody. So if you ever would like to get in touch with me to get some ideas or a little bit of help, you're welcome to get in touch with me. And so there I am. I really believe now, over the last few years, I've developed my mission in life. I've been doing evaluation for a long time and have always loved it, and have learned that the process of doing evaluation is at least as valuable as the outcome, which in my mind, the outcome or the output is an evaluation report, which often nobody reads. So I try very hard to encourage people to use evaluation to engage and learn about their programs, but also to involve the recipients of programs and the stakeholders, meaning anybody who is interested in your program, anybody who's supporting your program, to get them engaged in the evaluation process. Help them establish the meaning of the program from what they're seeing from evaluation data. Help them interpret the worth and value. Use the process to motivate and foster change for programs and services. And if you have a great process, if you have a great program, getting them engaged in evaluation will also help you advocate for the value of that program to them. So that's what I want to be talking. That's what I will be talking about today. So as I said, I started in 1988, and these were the prehistoric evaluation tools of back when I started. And pretty much this is the way the evaluation process functioned in those days. We used one of these tools to collect information from people engaged in the program. Often we had questionnaires. Now my first questionnaire was only 4 pages long, and it was mailed out to random selection of University of Arizona alumni, but when I say it was only 4 pages long, it was probably 10-point font and took probably, at least it looked like it took a while to complete. And needless to say, I didn't have the most impressive response rate, but it was probably typical. It was actually, this questionnaire was adopted by individual schools at University of Arizona for their own school-level alumni evaluation. So in those days, this was just how we did things. That was how we did evaluation. We used phones. We used cassette players to record interviews. Those are so ancient now I couldn't even find a picture. And so you collected the information. You, as the evaluator, by yourself in an office, analyzed the data, and then you produced a report that pretty much nobody read. This is kind of a new era, and there are 2 trends now that I think are really helping the evaluation practice to lift off. One is that we have started to use data for our own personal lives. A lot of us use Fitbits and look at a dashboard to see how many steps and how many calories and how much activity we've engaged in a day. Some of us use Weight Watchers to track our calorie counting and healthy eating habits. Some of us are using online financial tools to track spending habits. This has become very, very popular. And what I want to suggest to you is that if you take that enthusiasm for personal life and use it to look at what's happening in for your programs, you can generate the same kind of interest in the program, especially if you can do it in a way that engages other people, other stakeholders, others who are interested in the program. The other thing that's helping us is very rapid reporting, the ability to compile and show information quickly and share it with others. So social media has become a great boon to evaluation as well. I mean, most of us can take pictures of what we're eating and share it with our friends very, very quickly. We always have a camera on us if we have the right type of smartphone. So that ability to share information quickly, to compile and share it quickly, is helping the evaluation field as well. So just to kind of give you an example of how this process of evaluation and data visualization is impacting my life, I thought I would show you my new time management system that I learned from a coach named Laura Russo. So at the beginning of every month, I kind of sketch out the different projects that I need to work on. And what you see are you can't read it very well. I didn't think that that was important, but you can see that I have little headers that are the titles of the different projects I have to work on in a month. And each slip of paper that you see there represents a half an hour of effort. This is my done board, and this is early in the month. If you look at the photo that's at the lower left, I have tracked in the first couple of days how much time I've spent on different projects. The different colors represent, of course, they're categorizing the different types of projects I'm working on. So if you go up to the upper part of the triangle, that's my computer monitor. So every day I sit down and set a goal for working so many hours on specific projects. And I write out these little tabs representing a half an hour of time. So on this particular day, at the point that I took this picture, I still had an hour left to work on my orange project, an hour and a half for my pink project, and a half an hour for my green project. So as I would work, I really do often set a timer to keep myself focused for half hours at a time. Each time I complete a half an hour of work, I move that little tab to my done board. And as you can see, over the month, I start to really see the effort. So it's very motivating to me. It's motivating to me to fill up my whiteboard. So that's how I'm engaged in the process. But the information is also very valuable to me as well, because I count up the orange slips, divide it by 2, and I know about how much effort a particular project took. So it's really good information. I also want to point out on this board that to the left are projects that I had planned to do. To the right of the red line are the projects that emerged unexpectedly. This was the first month that I was the full-time acting assistant director of the Outreach Evaluation Resource Center. I've been involved with the OERC since 2004 as an evaluation specialist, but this was my first full-time month. And this really showed me at the end of a month how much unexpected work came with that particular job, and that I had to be prepared I had to be a little bit more flexible with my plans. So I hope a lot of people like these pictures, and I think it really shows how collecting and looking at information on an ongoing basis not only is helpful, but sort of makes your project a little more fun. So the trends in evaluation, I believe, are getting a greater number of people interacting around your project and engaging with it more. And there are three areas that I'm going to be talking about today. One is visual communication, one is storytelling, and one is technology. I want to pause just for a moment, and I had noticed, Marco or Lori, that there was an issue with audio, and I just want to make sure I don't need to wait.
Yeah, the audio seems better now. It might be just the UCLA thing.
Okay, all right. I just didn't want to keep going. I mean, you know, if I talk to myself for a whole hour, people start to wonder. So I'm glad you all are out there. Great. All right. So let's first talk about visual communication. Many of you may have noticed that a lot of reports out there, particularly those where people are spending a lot of money, that we are starting to see a lot more pictures and fewer words, things like infographics and dashboards and pictures with call-out quotes. Less dense text is becoming the norm. That is one of the signs of change in evaluation. Evaluators are trying to follow these trends. One of the most popular examples of this are in data dashboards, and this is really a hot area. We have done webinars on dashboards out of the OERC, and we just have, we tend to have, well, if you could have standing room only on Adobe Connect, that's what it would be. It's the only webinar I've ever had to do where we had to actually limit how many people could sign up. We had to close enrollment. Data dashboards are distinguished from infographics, which I'm going to talk about in a moment, in that they're interactive. And the way that they engage program stakeholders is that they allow program stakeholders to ask their own questions and answer them by interacting with the data. So that is what's really key about data dashboards. The other thing that's key is that they're very transparent. Most data dashboards have the data behind them. So if you know how to do it, you can go and look at the raw data that's generating the images. These are this is a data dashboard that comes from the Ohio State University. It is public. As you can imagine, if you are able to go to a data dashboard and get to the data behind it, that does mean that you often cannot make them publicly available. But this particular one this particular data dashboard doesn't have any identifying information. It's as you can see, gate count, so nobody really knows individual, you can't trace that information to any individuals. And it is a picture of gate counts for Ohio State University over a period spanning from 2011 to 2014. And so you see that's called a sparkline graphic, and then what you see below it is actual numbers. And you see the grand total at the bottom, but then there are different libraries, and everything is broken down for the different libraries. Now this is what makes this a data dashboard are the two boxes on the upper right corner. If I'm looking at this, and let's say I'm working for the Fine Arts library, then I can choose only the Fine Arts library and see what happens. I can just compare my Fine Art library against the grand total. So that sorts out some of the information, and it makes it easier to interpret the data. You also can adjust the time period. So maybe I want to see what happened at in a time range of maybe a month or two, so I can adjust the time period as well. So the most popular software now for doing data dashboards is Tableau. It is not inexpensive, and it is also not easy to learn. There is a big learning curve for it. There is a tremendous amount of free tutorials available, and actually live online training that you can get. But it is important, I think, even if you end up hiring someone to do a data dashboard, to understand how to put them together. And there's a wonderful guide that comes out of Juice Analytics that really helps you do that. This is a nice little graphic that shows you where the ideal metric is for a program. You are presenting a metric that can allow your user to take action on it, that everybody comes to a common interpretation of what that metric means, that it's both transparent, and the computation that you use to get the metrics is very simple and understandable. And finally, that not only is the data accessible, but people believe in it. It's credible. So you want to make sure that you have good, clean data, that there's no garbage in, garbage out, that whatever is being uploaded to calculate, to produce those data visualizations is solid. So if you are interested in working with either designing your own data dashboard, which is perfectly possible. As I said, Tableau is got a big learning curve, but still you can design some nice, simple dashboards with some training. It's available to you. Just keep in mind that if you decide to use the public Tableau product, that your data is available to anybody in the world. It is completely public. And so you only want to use the public dashboard if you're comfortable with that. The upside of that is that a lot of dashboards are created. I mean, people use that public data to create dashboards, and then you can go in and see how they put them together. So it really is sort of a shared experience that Tableau is trying to generate. So that is an example in which you are putting data together so that your stakeholders can come up with their own analysis of findings. A lot of you are probably really familiar with infographics, and they're different. They are a visual report of key indicators. Or other types of information, of course. It's not always just about evaluation. This is an example from the CDC's Healthy People 2020 infographic collection. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, I'm going to make resource lists available to all of you. So if you are ever interested in just getting your hands on these CDC infographics for your own purposes, they are free and available, and you will have a link where you can get this one or the other ones that are available. But this is a good example of a highly visual report of environmental quality assessment that the CDC has conducted. And what's different here is that the reporter, or the person who's doing the evaluation, has done the analysis and has chosen what to present to the user. So it's a little bit different, but it still is more engaging and easier to interpret. This is a way to communicate a lot of information in a very short format. Infographics, of course, are one page. There are 4 stages that you really need to think about with infographic design. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I just want to point out how these are a little bit more complicated than your standard Word document or written report. You have to do your research. You have to do your research and your data analysis. But then you have to think about good design. And there are a lot of different resources online to help you come up with that. But you do want to make sure that you follow some effective practices for putting your infographics together. You also need to be thinking about how you're going to publish it. Some of these infographic packages and the products are hard to load. I've seen people use infographics in annual reports that they send to funders, or they send to people, different people who are expecting these reports. And they're great, except they take a really long time to load. So you want to be really careful about how you are going to publish, and that it's accessible to the people, to your readers or to your users. And finally, you want to think about how you're going to promote it. Infographics are really popular on social media platforms, and so you want to have a plan for getting the word out about your infographics. Now, sometimes an infographic is not enough, and sometimes you want to do a combination of a lot of visuals, but you need to provide more data. Or more written information, more analysis. So another trend that we're starting to see in evaluation are these reports that are highly visual that are being produced in PowerPoint slides, because PowerPoint allows you to manipulate the position of images and graphs and tables and words. So that's a great idea, but it sometimes feels as though you need to have this absolutely stellar graphic design ability, because you're no longer just dealing with words and sentence structure and organization, but you have to think about your color palette and you have to think about the layout. So this is a product that's free. It's by Nancy Duarte, who is the presentation diva, probably one of the best-known presentation experts out there. She has a fabulous TED Talk about how to put messages together. She has put together slide docs that are available at duarte.com/slide docs. In fact, let me see if I can put that here. That's the website. And you actually can download free templates to help you do the layouts. She also has a book, the book for how to actually create great slide docs is presented in in the slide doc format. So you can see how she's put a report together. And then there are 2 different templates that you can actually download, and you can change them. You can change the colors in them, but she provides you with some color choices. So they're really, it's really an excellent product if you're interested in this type of report. Okay, I'll just show you a couple of examples. This comes from her downloadable slide doc template. This comes actually from her book that gives you some tips on how to put together these slide docs. There's another sample layout. So if you go there, you can find all kinds of examples of how to lay out your reports so that they're a little bit more visually interesting and help you start to get away from text-heavy reports and start putting images into them. But we also have some great examples of people starting to present evaluation metrics and evaluation reports in not only in graphic form, but actually in video form, in some really creative alternative formats. Video is something really worth looking at. This is an infographic that comes from a blog article with Hootsuite, which is a social media, it's a tool for managing your social media activities. Some of you may be familiar with it. But this is an infographic showing you how popular photos and videos have become online. We are becoming much more video-centric. And so evaluation, if it really wants to keep up with the trend, has to start thinking about this. This is a really interesting example that comes from the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. They have actually 3 different videos dealing with different metrics. The 2 that I remember, this is one that is a bar chart. The other is one that deals with their parking, with data that they collected about parking at different times of day. And it's a really clever video too. But this one is really worth watching. It's not very long, but it's their way of showing you what happened once they introduced free days at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. So on the far left, you see their fall baseline data. So that was the typical demographic breakdown of the visitors in fall of 2011. And so each color of jelly bean basically represents a different ethnic group or racial group. And then they show you how their visitors compare to the Denver U.S. Census data. And as you can see, the visitors were not nearly as multicultural as the census for Denver, as the Denver population based on the U.S. Census. Then they collected the same type of demographic information on free days that they offered in 2011. And what you can see is that now the visitor statistics are starting to align with the 2010 census. So it's a really clever, completely non-verbal, almost completely non-verbal way of showing how this particular initiative helped them meet their goals of attracting a more diverse visitor group to the museum. Okay. And then this one is even more clever. This is one that used street artists to demonstrate data that they collected in the neighborhood. This comes from a project called Mill Road in the UK. And Mill Road was a very long street, and at one end, the residents tended to be blue-collar workers, and then at the other end, they were university workers. So it was a very diverse neighborhood in terms of social class. And in the summer of 2013, they decided to collect information from the residents to find out how they felt about Mill Road. And they had there were various businesses along Mill Road had these little boxes where you could go in and there was a question, and they asked you to rate some characteristic of the neighborhood. And what you can see there were the different characteristics over several days. So for a few days, someone would come in and the question would be, what level of happiness do you feel when you come visit Mill Road? And the people who hit the yellow button, if they felt positively, and it was really associated just with a smile. I don't think there were even words associated with it, but if you felt positive, you hit the yellow button and showed that you were smiling when you thought of that. If you hit the white button, you felt neutral, and if you hit the blue button, you felt sad. So every few days, they would collect all of the responses across these 10 or 12 businesses, and they would compile them. And what you see, those little figures, each figure represents 10% of the respondent group. So if you have, as you can see, there were 7 happy colors. So 70% of people had high happiness ratings for Mill Road. 10% were neutral and 20% did not feel positively. So then they would change the characteristic every few days, and then it would just build as it went along. And the street artists would develop this street graphic, and the evaluators would go out and hang around and listen and talk to the people, and they found that there was a great deal of conversation around this, and they started to collect stories and memories and different types of data in informal interviews with the residents of Mill Road, and they did a report. And you can go and see more of this when you get the resource list. But I have always thought this would be a fabulous way to demonstrate responses to user surveys where you are tracking the satisfaction of your users. This would be a way to present to them in a very interesting way the results, and then you could go out and hear what people were saying about the results and get them engaged in the evaluation. It probably would motivate them to complete the questionnaires if you started to show them in a really dynamic way what everybody was saying. So I think there's a lot of potential for this particular process. So those are some of the ways that we're using data analysis and reporting to engage a broader group of people in our evaluation activities. Now let's talk about a way to engage people in providing you with data. So I think of storytelling as a way to collect information from your program participants or from your users in a way that's a little bit more fun for them than your typical questionnaire. And storytelling has become very, very popular. It's very popular because it captures a lot of attention from the people who, from your stakeholders when you want their support. It tends to demonstrate in a much more compelling way what you're accomplishing, because we respond to stories more than we do to static data. However, I want to argue that it's also more fun for the people who you're questioning, the people who you want to have participate in your evaluation process as well. I just think that we are a storytelling, as humans, we love stories and we really respond to them. One of the most popular is something that's called appreciative inquiry. And this is where we ask people, our questions are very simple, and we ask people to first tell us about peak experiences, and then from that, talk about what they wish would happen in the future. And it is a way to get feedback from your users, but it's a way to do it so that they don't have to worry that they're complaining or that they're being critical of you. When you say, what are some of the best experiences you've either had with our library or the best experiences that you've had with any library? And then say, now given that, what do you wish would happen every time you came into our library? People can tell you what they want, and it never feels critical. It doesn't feel critical to you as you're hearing it, and they don't feel as though they're being critical of the library. Libraries tend to, I've done a lot of evaluation about libraries, and our users like us. They really like, and they like us, and they don't want to be critical, and they understand that libraries do a lot with the resources that are given to them. But that can get in their way of providing you with really useful information about the directions that you want to go, and that's why I think appreciative inquiry is so beneficial. This is the basic format. Now, appreciative inquiry is really an approach. There is a book by Preskel and Casambas that talks about how to integrate this aspirational language in any type of evaluation that you do. But this is the basic appreciative inquiry interview, and I like it because it's so simple that almost anyone can pick it up. you can ask these questions without doing it formally. If you just want to get feedback on your program in a way that that you're not really recording it, you're just trying to learn how people feel about the services that you're providing, or you can make a formal evaluation process, and you can actually get your staff engaged in this. This is the sort of thing that can be this task can be divided up among people who don't have a lot of strong evaluation ability, a lot of evaluation skill, and they will learn as they are collecting the data. It's a much more positive experience. Okay. Now there's another process that is also popular called the most significant change method. And this is particularly good if you want to collect stories about how your program has made a difference. And this is the basic format. You first ask people to think about your program and the most significant change they've made in their lives as a result of the program or service that you've offered them. The second one is really important. You ask them why that was so important to them. The reason that this question is so important is that you learn how it changed their lives. You learn about the outcomes beyond your face-to-face interactions with them. This is something that tends to be very, very hard to track. And that's why I like this particular method, because it helps you collect more details about these sort of more intermediate and long-term outcomes that occur as a result of your program. And you can also ask them what kind of a what kind of a difference has that made? So someone might say, the most significant change is the way that I do evaluation. It was really important to me because I was able to get my staff to help, and people are, they're finding it easier and more fun to do. And it's already made a difference because I've been able to make a really dynamic report to my boss and convinced her to let us extend our program. So those three questions you can run through them pretty quickly, but you can get a lot of really valuable information. You can also do something that I tried with some high school students, where you can actually have them add pictures to their stories. Now, we did a photo, this is called photo voice, and this is where people use pictures to convey a story. It's very, very popular with groups of people who are not highly literate or don't care to write. What you do is ask them to go out and take a picture of something. And in this case, this was a project I did with high school students that are trained to promote Medline Plus. So we asked them to take pictures of how they helped members of their family use Medline Plus and how that made a difference. It's very comparable to the most significant change, except that they used pictures. Now, what you see here are pictures that are not the most compelling, because you can't see pictures, you can't see people's faces. That's because this was data. These were not put together for any type of promotional purpose. And we wanted to protect people's identity by not showing their faces. We used the stories. The stories were the data that we analyzed to find out how families were being helped. But the pictures helped the peer tutors get into the project, and they really liked it. So if you ever are working with youth, this is a really good way to do it. So the three stories, the one was a mother who had, on the left is a mother who had the symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis. What we learned from there not only was that she was able to use Medline Plus to help her manage her condition, but the story also showed us that the peer tutor was very cognizant of the fact that they were not to use Medline Plus to diagnose her illness. They looked up her symptoms, started to suspect she had rheumatoid arthritis, and the peer tutor was able to convince her mother to see a doctor right away to confirm the diagnosis before she did anything else. So that showed us two things. One, that the mother was making use of Medline Plus as a personal tool, but also that the peer tutor knew how she was supposed to use Medline Plus to support health, but not to diagnose. The middle was a mother who had hypoglycemia that used Medline Plus to figure out how to eat better. Her energy levels were better to the point that that she was more energetic at the end of the day. The whole family noticed a difference in the mother's behavior. And on the right was a mother who actually went into an emergency room with high blood pressure, symptoms of high blood pressure, was told she had high blood pressure, was sent home without any information. She was Spanish speaking. So the peer tutor took her mother online and they collected information and got her prepared for her primary care physician visit. So these were great stories. And we also showed some of these stories to our stakeholders. We showed them to the different librarians in the school district. We showed them to outreach librarians in the National Network of Libraries of Medicine. This is a National Library of Medicine funded project. And we showed the leadership, principals, and superintendents. And we asked them to tell us what they thought were the most significant changes in the families, the changes that were really important to them. So it was a great way, once again, to engage our stakeholders. The leadership at the school district was always highly supportive of this program, which actually has been around for 12 years. But even after all that time, when they saw these pictures, you could tell that the program meant more to them after seeing how the families were changed once the students knew how to use and promote Medline Plus. And this is just, as you can see, it was a very simple story template. We just asked the students to give us a background on the picture, tell us what happened, and why they thought the change was important. So it's, again, you can give them, people can tell you really great stories, just about 3 questions. All right, so the last thing that I want to talk about is technology, and I'm going to show you a couple of interesting tools in a moment. But I want to, first of all, mention something that's really important. If you are right now engaged in collecting online questionnaires, you have to really be aware of the fact that 35% of Internet users go online mostly using their phones and not through a desktop or a laptop. And this is having a significant impact on how we design our questionnaires. When you design, this is an online questionnaire that I designed for a project with the National Network. It's a national initiative for the NNLM. So all of our RMLs are involved in this particular promotion of K through 12 follow-up questionnaires. And when I first designed it, I designed it for laptops. And this is a really typical example. This is a very short questionnaire. Almost the majority of the questions are on this first page. When you design online questionnaires, a best practice recommendation is that people don't do, they're better off scrolling than changing pages. So the recommendation is to have fewer pages and more questions per page. But here's the problem with that. If people try to access that on their cell phones, as you can see, it's starting to fall off the, it's starting to go off the screen. So if you are designing for the mobile view, you want to make sure that it's 1 question per page and that you go online and see what it looks like. Now, this particular slide, people can scroll, they scroll a little bit, they have to scroll a little bit. But if I had kept it this way, they would have had to scroll a lot to answer the questions, and the box would have gone off the page. So you need to really test your formats. And the other thing I want to point out is that if you actually have a split group where half of them are going to be doing your questionnaire online and half of them are going to be doing them on the mobile phone, you might actually want to do 2 different designs and let people know if you're going to do this on your desktop, go to this link, and if you're going to do it on a mobile phone, you go to a second link and help people get to the format that's most comfortable based on the application they're going to be using, or how they're going to access the questionnaire. Now, this is a really exciting product that I like a lot called QuickTap Survey. And this is really good if you are doing exhibits and you want to collect information from visitors who come to your booth. This is a very popular tool now with people who do marketing. This is designed for tablets. There's an Android and an iPad version. And you can come up with these touch screen questionnaires and just hand your iPad to your visitor and have them fill out these different questions. There's the multiple answer format, the yes-no format. You could even get them to type in their zip codes. And the way the QuickTap Survey is, everyone asks me, what's the difference between QuickTap Survey and SurveyMonkey? SurveyMonkey, you access through a URL, and you have to have an internet connection to be able to participate in the questionnaire. In other words, the questions are actually online. They're not on your tablet or on your laptop. QuickTap Survey, the questions are actually on the device itself, and you can collect the data and then load it when you have an internet connection. The other thing that it does is that it loops. So as soon as you get to the last page, it loops back to the first page. So it's really easy to go from visitor to visitor. You don't have to take them through the URL route. The fact is now QuickTap Survey and SurveyMonkey have a partnership so that you can actually collect the same information both ways, and it all goes into a common pool of data and can be analyzed all together pretty seamlessly. QuickTap Survey itself, you can get analytics immediately. This is a real key to the modern modern way of collecting data, where you get immediate data, compiled data, so that you can get feedback immediately. But you also are able to download the information from the QuickTap Survey, so that you can use it in your own Excel or SPSS or whatever. So it's very, very flexible. There is a free version. It's very limited in that you can only collect, I think you can only run one survey at a time. You can only run it on one device, and you can only collect about 50. After that, it's the pricing is by month, and it's by device. So for their basic plan, it's $19 for a month, and then you pay an extra amount of money if you want to load it on multiple laptops. So once again, you can have 3 people gathering data on the same questionnaire, and it's all going into the same pool of data for analysis. So it's really nice. And the fact that it's a month-to-month means you don't have to have a long-term commitment. Now, we're going to try 2 more right now. So everybody, keep your fingers crossed. This is the audience participation part of our webinar today. This is this is a software that allows you to gather information through text message. This is called Poll Everywhere. And I'm going to see if I can now get the URL up here for you. So if you would like to participate, you have several ways that you can do it. You might want to get your mobile phones out. All right, there we go. There we go. So if you click on that link, you should see a poll. And there are three ways that you can participate. You can either respond if you get charged for sending texts and you want to participate online, you can go to pollev.com/OERC and answer this question. Or you can send a text, and what you do is you send it to 22333, and then in the message part of your text you put the number. And you can also go to tweet and hit @poll and put the code. So I'll give you all a minute if you want to see what happens there. I think that this would be a really fun product to use at an exhibit booth where you could have the visitors come and actually engage in feedback about whatever question you want to put up there. I think it would be a really cool audience analysis tool. Again, this is the free version that you're using right now. It limits you to 25 participants, and then of course, depending on how much you want to use it, the prices go up from there. Cool. So there we go. So I don't have anybody who's saying they're unlikely, so that's kind of cool. That means that we've got a group here that is interested in trying new things. We're still getting some, I'll give you a minute there.
Hi, Cindy.
Okay.
I'm getting a result saying the poll's full.
Oh, yes, it is full. This is the free version, so I can stop now. I apologize for those of you that didn't get there, but your response is probably in there, right? Okay. Now let me come back here. Oh, I managed to come back. All right, so come back to the Adobe Connect room because I'm going to show you a different product. This is a cool little data collection tool or data participation tool that's called Padlet. Some of you may be familiar with this. And this is a place where people can actually post comments. So you can put a question, and this is one that I ran when I was first playing with Padlet. I put the question, what's your favorite holiday treat? And it's very easy to send a link out to people and have them post responses. So we're going to try this now too. I'm going to take you to okay, so let's try this, and hopefully you're going to get to a wall that says, what Eval 2.0 tools do you think you might try? And so all you need to do is go and double left click, and you should get a little box where you can put your name, and you can write a comment. And you can actually, as you can see, you can actually load a picture. You can load hyperlinks. There are a lot of different templates at Padlet, so you can actually set this up and ask people to post what happened at the beginning of the program, the middle, and the end. There's lots of potential for structuring the responses to this too. Oh, somebody, look, Lori put a poll everywhere picture of it. That's great. Somebody put their picture up, Amber. So anyway, I think that this is a great way to interact with your groups as well. So let me go back. All right, so everybody come back now, and so this is really the conclusion of my presentation. I hope that you all got some great ideas for making your evaluation process and reporting more engaging for the people who, for both your participants and your stakeholders. I hope you learned some techniques that you will play with in the future. And we still have about 5 minutes, so I would love to have you either ask me questions or hit star six and tell me which of these things that I presented today interested you the most. What do you think you might be willing to try? And you can also put them in the chat box if you would rather. Okay, somebody is asking about, there's somebody who's used Poll Everywhere, and it's gone past me. So the person who uses, I think it's Kathleen. I was wondering if you'd be willing to hit star six and tell us about, whoever has had experience with Poll Everywhere, give us some examples of how you use it.
Hi, this is Kathleen. I use it and I really like it. I guess I got introduced to it by Mark Funk at MLA, and I decided to use it. We were using this crazy little gadget at the school. I work at the College of Medicine in Phoenix at the University of Arizona. And so I brought it back from MLA and I used it, but unfortunately, I, like you, ran out of room. So all the students were complaining because they didn't register because I was over the amount. So I learned my lesson from that experience in that class. So the next year when I gave the same class, but what happened was the associate dean was so convinced on it, he bought the entire version for the college, and so now I don't ever run out of space.
Oh,
but they were so impressed with how Poll Everywhere worked for us that he dumped the thing they created for us, and they switched to Poll Everywhere.
Great. Oh, that's a great story. I was wondering if anybody else had experience with any of these things, any of these products that I showed today, which, by the way, I don't own stock in any of them. There's my disclosure statement. Well, it looks like a lot of you like Poll Everywhere. I've often wondered if people would make use of that, but it looks as though a lot of you would.
Hi, Cindy. This is Kelly. I've used QuickTap Survey at exhibit booths in the past, and particularly for the K through 12 science exhibits that we've done. So I'll set up a small evaluation, or not really an evaluation, but just kind of an assessment to see what resources the attendees to the booth know about. But then I also was able to randomize their responses and give away a set of, well, it was materials that I had from the EPA on sun safety. And so it was kind of cool because QuickTap Survey gathered all of these responses from the exhibit attendees and then also randomized and picked one just at random so that I could do that giveaway.
Oh, that's cool. Now, Kelly, I thought I heard that you had a little bit of trouble with font size. Do I remember that correctly, or was that just a rumor? Because I don't think you told me that. Uh-oh.
Sorry, I muted myself accidentally.
Oh, okay. I heard something that made me worry that we were hung up, that there was a hang-up. So did you have trouble, or was that somebody else?
Were you talking about QuickTap Survey?
Yes.
It seems like I had some issues with some of my questions were too long, and so it automatically changes the font size. So you have to kind of be careful when you're creating your questions and then preview it so you can see what it looks like on the screen. So that's the only thing. It's, you're using a small screen with the iPad, so you just have to try a few different things and see what it looks like.
Yeah, and I think that that's a kind of imposed discipline in a way, because I can be really wordy too. But if you're at an exhibit, you want to make sure people can answer real quickly too.
Right.
One of the things I want to mention, though, is that these tools are so friendly and interactive that I do want to caution you to remember to be thinking about confidentiality. We can't even promise anonymity with a lot of the data processes that we use, and that's always been the case. Any type of face-to-face data collection, I mean, you know the person, you know who's saying what, but these are so casual, and social media, I mean, our whole culture has become sort of more free about what they say and what they write, that we do want to keep in mind when we're doing evaluation to think about protecting people's information and protecting them even from things that they may never think about. So if you are collecting information, like our photo voice, it's really important that the students were trained how to take pictures so that we couldn't identify the person. Now, if we had picked a handful of stories and wanted to use those to communicate about the program in a broader way, particularly in that case, it was often their friends or family members, we could have sent them back with photo releases and actually had them take more pictures with people's faces. So there is a possibility in a lot of cases to get that type of permission from your evaluation participants. But just try to keep that in mind, to always be trying to protect the identity of the people that are giving you information. It is a kind of a new world, and I think because they become so socially interactive that we forget that. There is my information. Please feel free to get in touch with me. Visit our website. Our website has got 3 booklets that give you the basics of planning and conducting evaluation. We have a blog. We post weekly, and we also have a Twitter feed that mostly promotes our blog. And I hope that you all go forth and do great, engaging, interactive evaluation. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy, for just a great presentation. As a reminder, today's recording and the presentation materials are going to be available on the PSR website. And if you've registered for today's presentation, you'll be receiving an email by the end of the week with more information about how to obtain your MLA CE credit. So thank you again, Cindy, and thank you all for attending, and stay tuned for information about our next midday session.